Dustin, and welcome to the TNA Post Show. As always, I'm joined by my co-host. He allegedly has no relation to Steve Maclin. He's the third rascal. He's the star of the show. He's the one and only Burt Maclin.
How's it going?
It's going good. Sorry, we do apologize for the late start. It was my fault. But before we get into tonight's show, let's quickly just talk about NXT because we had NXT Roadblock. We had the TNA tag titles defended there. The Hardy Boys versus Fraxium. This was an incredible match.
Yeah, it was. I'm not saying it over delivered, but it was better than I expected. And just real quick before even going into the match, I think the Hardys got the loudest pop of the show. If not the loudest, it's near the top. They continue just to be over like gods. So even if people who may have thought that they didn't really have anything left, it's obvious they do. But yeah, no, this was a really good match. For a minute there, I thought Fraxium were going to win. I thought that they should have won, but I'm not saying this was. I don't have any problem with this decision.
Same here. I had no problem with the Hardy Boys going over Fraxium. I wouldn't have minded Fraxium won and then be the first promotional champions. But yeah. That wasn't the only thing that happened on Roadblock. We had the long-awaited dream match of Obafemi versus Moose for the NXT Championship. This match, oh my god, this match was insane. Moose looked like $1 million out there. Like, even though he lost, and I think you and I and everybody watching knew Moose was going to lose going into this, he still looked incredible losing.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the people's process. Well, I think that was their thought immediately, just because they knew that they weren't going to have Moose go over, so they have to make him look good, and they did that. So, yeah. Mission accomplished.
And Obafemi, I would just say, is a star on the rise. He looked great out there too.
Yeah, I think I think there's still room for him to get better, obviously, but I think one of the reasons he's only on NXT still is just because their main roster is so thin. Otherwise, I mean, their world title scene is so thin. Otherwise, he'd probably be on the main roster already.
Joseph says, I'm convinced that after this TNA run, the Hardy Boys will finish with WWE. I think so too.
Yeah.
At some point,
worries. I mean, that doesn't matter. That's fine. So. Yeah.
At some point, a title from NXT or TNA needs to change places for the partnership to work. I agree, and we'll get into that when we get into tonight's show. All right. Do you have anything else you want to say real quick about Obafemi versus Moose or about Fraxium versus the Hardys before we get into tonight's show?
Not about those two matches, but just real quick, because I still think she's TNA adjacent, especially since the partnership. Jordan versus Roxanne, I thought was very good. Roxanne's last match, I think, before she goes to the main roster. And one of the other reasons I'm only bringing it up, I think, is just because, as I mentioned, TNA adjacent and then the partnership, and we're going to get into it later. I wouldn't be surprised if we just maybe seen, and I think it'd be cool if maybe Jordan shows back up in TNA, especially right now with the feud going on with Masha and then Cora and Tessa, obviously, just because Masha doesn't really have any backup right now, and there's obviously history that they didn't really finish with Jordan and Tessa, so that's the only reason I was bringing that match up.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see that. I could see that happening. Alrighty, so now let's get into tonight's show, which is the go home show to Sacrifice, as we all know, Sacrifice being tomorrow. All right. So tonight's show kicked off with Eddie Edwards versus Leon Slater. The winner would get the advantage for the cage match. So are they bringing back Lockdown? Because they posted the rules to this. And it says it's a 10-man tag team cage match. And the rules are 2 tag teams, 5 competitors. 2 competitors begin the match. After 2 minutes, a new competitor enters the cage every minute until all competitors are inside the cage, win by pinfall or submission.
So basically, it's a lockdown match without it being on the lockdown show.
Okay.
And their lockdown match, basically their version of the War Games match. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be really exciting because again, they haven't had a cage in a few years. So,
Anywho, this match, I have to say, everybody was out there. I think everybody was out there, right? And the only one that got involved was Lish. Lish was the only one that got involved in this.
I don't know how I missed everyone being out there, but yeah, that's.
Was everybody out there? Because I know Eddie Edwards came out with the system.
Yeah, I thought that was after. I thought Lish was the only one out there.
Oh, you know what? Maybe she was the only one out there. I could have sworn they were out there.
They gave Leon Slater a lot in this match, and I thought he continues to look like the future of TNA. And it's so surprised they didn't win, just because typically, because this was for the man advantage. So the man advantage going to the heel team is pretty par for the course. So JC winning made sense.
Eddie Edwards. This was Eddie Edwards.
Eddie Edwards winning makes sense, just because the giving the man advantage to the heel team.
They are. All right, next we got a Sami Callihan segment, and he's basically talking about how he's still a death machine, and about how Mance Warner is lucky he can't put his hands on him. Speaking of Mance Warner, SDL and Mance Warner show up, and they basically are teasing Sami Callihan. They're trying to instigate him. I think she like slaps him or something, and he's just like, oh, he's just livid to the point. And basically, long story short, they're gonna see each other at Sacrifice.
We're not doing predictions till after the show, but I'm gonna break the rules real quick and just do my prediction real quick. No way Sami Callihan should win this match. Mance Warner has to win. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll get more into it as we get into predictions. We get Wes Lee versus Laredo Kid. And I thought this was a good match. But as always, I feel so bad for Laredo Kid. I feel like he doesn't really get a chance to get showcased as much, you know?
Yeah, hopefully that changes soon, especially, just with basically the reintroduction of them, probably, I would think, putting the DMC back on TV. And then again, yeah, maybe as the year progresses, we'll get more matches on Explosion. And then again, we could see Laredo Kid on NXT as well. So I do feel bad. I can't remember the last time he won. Still, this was a good match. He looked good out there.
Terrence says, hello, everybody. Hello, Terrence. Yeah, Laredo Kid is a phenomenal talent. I hope someday he gets to have a decent title, because his run with the digital media title was super short. Like, I don't even think it lasted a month. So I hope he gets a decent run next time. So at the end of this match, the Rascals and Ace Austin interfere. And basically, Trey Miguel says that they aren't cowards and they're waiting for Wes Lee to be done. And at Sacrifice, this is Wentz talking, they're going to close the chapter once and for all, and we'll send them back to NXT. Smoke them if you got them. And they got all of them. Unfortunately, like I always say, I don't got them. So.
Yeah, it should be a really good match.
Oh, shit. Can't wait. Is this Antonio says the Hardys are going back to 30? Really? Okay. Now, this next thing that happened kind of got me scratching my head a little bit. So, we had a Spitfire segment. And basically, we're going to get a 3-on-2 handicap match. It is Spitfire versus the Elegance brand with a mystery partner of their choosing, which ends up being the personal concierge. And we don't learn until commentary tells us this is actually for the Knockouts tag titles. So I'm a little confused here, because how can it be a 2-on-3 handicap match and it be for the Knockouts tag titles? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like the Elegance brand. I do. I dig Ash by Elegance, Heather by Elegance. I was digging them. But I'm getting really over this feud. Like, this feud needs to end. How many more times and how many more combinations can we do of Spitfire versus the Elegance brand? Like, this has to be it. Like, if Spitfire wins this match, then we got to move on. And you know what? Utilize the NXT women's roster. Bring more women's tag teams over here. And I honestly think that the Knockouts tag titles should be the first titles to be interpromotional. You know, have a team from NXT win it, because at this point, there is no Knockouts tag team division in TNA, unfortunately. So why not go to NXT? Why not send Spitfire to NXT? I honestly, and again, I'll talk more about this in prediction, but I honestly wouldn't mind if the Spitfire retains and a tag team from NXT comes out and confronts them for those titles.
I'm fucking pissed.
Me
Uh,
too.
the only good news I can see in this, which because of that there will be a little bit of bad news, is I think it's inevitable that Spitfire loses now, because especially with that stipulation, if they're really going with that, that's fine with me. So that would mean that finally we would end this feud. We'd most likely get a quick rematch, which that's the unfortunate bad news. But then we could be done with it. But yeah, this is all TNA's fault for, again. I would say at this point that it's been a bad decision bringing these titles back, because they've really like done like nothing with it. And so yeah, like now really their only course would be, and especially I agree with what you're saying, if Spitfire does retain, especially like if it's like a quick stupid match, you know what I mean? Someone from NXT should immediately come out and take the titles from them, like win, you know what I mean? Just because it's not like over Spitfire, but they need to start like doing something to add some fire to this. I mean, add, you know, no, excuse the pun, but yeah, they need to add some juice to this division, because it's nothing right now. It's non-existent.
Okay, hold on. It says Antonio says hi to everybody. So hi,
Hello.
Antonio. He says they're clearly gonna lose the belts. I hope they sign some people because the tag team division needs teams. What the hell is going on? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm pissed off. A 302 handicap match, Jesus, is for the TNA Knockouts tag titles. Because it's bad writing. They put themselves in a bad position when they need more knockouts tagged. More knockouts, so they wrote themselves into a corner. Sorry for cursing, just frustrated as a women's wrestling fan. Nah, it's okay. You can curse. It's just 2 people, or say 4 people in that tag division. It is horrible. They had to sign more talent. The TNA Knockouts tag team division should be the first titles from TNA to go to NXT. Exactly. I agree with you, Joseph. They should be the first titles. Now, we've talked about this. I've mentioned this before. When those titles were first introduced back in 2021, there was somewhat of a division. Somewhat. Unfortunately, they lost so many tag teams. They didn't replace them all, you know? They weren't. I mean, they lost Influence, the Inspiration, Vex, the Shataraj. So,
But the
oh,
whole time, though, again, yes, they lost those teams, but TNA's booking of this division has sucked because they've never had more than 3 at a time.
yeah. Yeah. So, I said, honestly, at this point, as much as I like the Elegance brand, like, I'm just done with this feud. If we don't move on from this feud, I'm just gonna I'm gonna rip my hair out, seriously, because like I'm just so frustrated. I'm so frustrated. I don't understand why they don't. I mean, with this partnership, they should just utilize NXT more, or sign more women. Isn't that why their explosion was for, to showcase talent?
Yeah, and it also just kind of seems like too, like they don't ever have the women's teams, especially they don't have like the shelf life of like in any company that you would see the men's teams having. You know what I mean? Like they need to build some teams and have them stay a while. You know what I mean? Multiple title rate, multiple feuds. You know what I mean? Because again, like a lot of those teams that we did name, 2 of them, like a few of them were like either they broke up because one person left. You know what I mean? Like either they need to go sign some established teams or start creating some homegrown of their own.
What happened to the Hex? Didn't they send the Hex?
No, I think they're in NWA still. I think they're exclusively in NWA.
Oh, okay. I don't know, but let's just move on, because now we're going to be here all night talking about the same things that we've talked about. The Iconics need to come back. Seriously, they need to bring them back. I would love if the Inspiration comes back. They were
I think
legitimately my favorite tag team.
I think they're gonna go back to WWE. I
Yeah, I think
believe
so
I've
too.
been seeing things like that.
Give me a quick second. Hold on.
And besides, like I said, I don't think they're. I would rather see TNA build their own talent in terms of, especially in this division. That way, that their names with a little more staying power instead of either just putting two random people together or trying to bring back an old team to whether just try to pass the division or just you know what I mean. So yeah, they need to sign more teams or create their own.
Cassie and Jesse booked their return April 17th at Prestige Wrestling during the Mania Week versus Nicole Matthews and WID Kylie Ray. Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. All right, speaking of the knockouts, we had Xia Brookeside versus Rosemary, which I thought this was a good match, but we got some interesting kind of a tease at the end. Like Rosemary grabbed the chain, and Xia Brookside stepped on Rosemary's hand and grabbed the chain. It looked like she was tempted to use it because she was smiling, but unfortunately, Rosemary missed her, and she and Xia Brookside ends up winning this by DQ. So, what do you think? Does not Rosemary, does Xia Brookside turn heel? What do you think? That just a one-time thing? What do you think of that little tease?
Almost like shades of Julia misting Sky Blue and AEW and them turning heel. When I think about it in my head, I don't want that to happen. Just because I think that this sounds too similar on paper if this happens, something like that. But at the same time, Xia Brookside turning heel in maybe a little different way and joining Rosemary, I don't hate that just because, again, that's at least creating a team.
I wouldn't mind it if they do go that route and Rosemary corrupts Xia Brookside and they become a team. Like you said, that's another team, you know.
Hmm.
But still, like that still brings us to 3 teams. You
Yeah.
know,
Still, yeah.
again, they need to utilize NXT. Okay, I would love it if they bring back Cassie and Jesse, but it's totally up to them.
WWE, if it wasn't clear that WWE didn't have a shitload of talent, they just started another show on Tubi that you could basically call their fourth brand, Evolve. Like, there's got to be some people on there that TNA could use. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Also, with this like WWE ID program, I have some of these people that they clearly won't be able to get on WWE TV anytime soon, just because, like I said, they have way too many people. Have them do some stuff for TNA. This is like
Yeah.
what TNA needs to be. Have somebody pitching some of these ideas.
Yeah, I agree. That's what Explosion is for. All right. Next, we're gonna see Maclin segment, and this is an interesting segment because he's sitting by like a campfire. I think you can't really see, but like he's sitting somewhere, and he's just like drawing. And then Eric Young sits right next to him, and they're basically talking about their friendship and the Northern Armory. And basically, Steve Maclin makes it very clear to Eric Young he's not going to join him as long as the Northern Armory is with him. And Eric Young says that everybody needs somebody to have their back, but it doesn't mean this has to end. And Steve Maclin tells Eric Young to enjoy his drink. So I wonder again if maybe your prediction is correct and maybe Steve Maclin joins the Northern Armory as kind of like a bodyguard or something. Though personally, I don't think Steve Maclin needs to be anybody's bodyguard. But what do you think we go from here?
I just think it's gonna get. I actually just think it's most likely gonna be Steve Blackman not joining, and this just kind of further his like rise to the top face in the company. or one of them. So I think that's what they're trying. Yeah, I don't think that he should join them.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna join them either. I think this is gonna turn him into a big, massive baby face.
Yeah.
Let me see. It would be step down and Steve Maclin becomes a bodyguard. He's probably in the best spot of his TNA run. He has so much confidence in that. Yeah, that's true. Very true. All right. So next we get a Cody Deaner promo. And Cody Deaner's talking about how he's a father of 4 kids, and the crowd starts chanting he's got kids, but he says that's somebody else's gimmick. Obviously, we know that gimmick that belongs to Heath Slater. And he starts talking about how like he continues to have fun while beating the crap out of a member of the system, and JDC says he basically tells him to walk away and not be a disappointment. And the crowd, he leads it up to the crowd to decide, and people decide that they want Deaner to fight. So Deaner attacks JDC, and we get JDC versus Cody Deaner. This was an enhancement match, so to speak, because JDC pretty much squashed Deaner.
Yeah, at this point, Deaner's just on TV to lose. So, yeah, this was nothing. JDC won with a Falcon Arrow, which I haven't seen anyone win with a while, and yeah, this was pretty much nothing.
Yeah, this was not.
This wasn't the biggest squash match on the show, though.
I know. Okay. We got Cora, Jade, and Tessa Blanchard versus Masha, Slamovich, and Ying. I have to say, I feel like Cora, Jade, and Tessa Blanchard actually worked really well together. I thought that they actually did a good job.
Why I'm not disagreeing with you. I was really upset with this match just because I thought basically between Cora, Masha, and Tessa, I'm not saying that they dominated the match, but just with all the stuff going on with the 3 of them, whether Cora and Masha having the match or Tessa and, Tessa basically eyeing the championship, I don't think Ying got a lot in this match, and that's disappointing to me.
Joseph asked you, was it the fact that Tessa Blanchard pinned the TNA Knockout champion that shocked you?
Well, that was the second thing that pissed me off. Again, like I was mad just because I was excited that they're setting up this feud with Free Ying. I thought it was gonna, I thought for this first match, since we haven't got the singles match yet, that there would be a little bit more interaction to them because they have a match tomorrow, right? There'd be a little more to set that up. You know what I mean? But yeah, Tessa pinning the champ, pinning Masha, yeah, frankly, it does piss me off just because I don't think that should be. Whether Tessa's going to win the championship or not, that's not for me to decide. Obviously, that's TNA, but they shouldn't be doing this match out. There should be no there should be no idea put out there right now that Masha should be even thought to lose the championship this early. It shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? It shouldn't happen.
So I have to agree with you. I was kind of disappointed too, even though I thought this was a great match, and I was kind of disappointed we didn't get enough of Lee Ling. Yeah, it sounds like a tongue twister.
Real quick, the finish should have been the obvious finish should have been either Cora pinning Ying or Masha with the crowd with the announcers saying, "Could this be a preview tomorrow night?" You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it should have been. But sorry to interrupt.
No, I was gonna mention that. Like, I don't know how I feel about Tessa pinning Masha because I felt like it was too soon. It definitely should have been Tessa pinning Ying. I guess that's probably foreshadowing what's to come.
And even with like, let's just separate the off the field stuff, if you would, within the ring stuff. Tessa's booking, to me, she's being booked like someone if they signed a top star. And this current Tessa, to me, before she signed with TNA again, I didn't think of her as a star, like one of the top stars in women's wrestling. So yeah, I again, even if it wasn't her, number one, I still don't think Masha should be even losing the title this early, or even thoughts of that. But yeah, they're just booking her very strong for, especially when there's people in the division who have been there longer than her that they haven't booked. I haven't seen them book this strong,
Mm-hmm.
So it's scary. It's a little scary to me, the thought of Masha losing.
No, yeah, I feel you there. Oh, Joseph brings up a good point. It says, I know this was taped a while ago, but 2 weeks ago on NXT, Cora Jade met Jordan Grace, and the match was stopped due to Cora being injured. It was revealed to be a concussion. Yeah. Huh. I totally forgot about that. We'll see if it affects the match tomorrow, but I doubt it. I was mixed on my thoughts of Tessa signing with TNA. On one hand, glad that she's back in the States on TV wrestling, but too nervous because people want her blackballed. If she beats Masha, all hell will break loose. Oh, you're definitely right about that. But needless to say, I do agree with some of the points that you're making. Like I said, I did think it was a great match, but yeah, all right, this finish should have gone a different way.
Also, I think to Joseph's point, I think that fans have already thought that Washington have already thought about the possibility of, like, is she going to be Masha? And yes, I think the fans that dislike her will lose it, but I think that it will be. I think it's too. I think that it will be more. It will be a softer blow if she wins the title a little way down the road, especially right. I still think it's too hot right now. You know what I mean? Let the stuff off the field die down to the amount, to the degree that it can, because obviously people are they're always going to be the stuff there, but it's too soon to put the title on her right now.
Yeah, I agree. Next, we get a Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali summit. So this was a really good summit. Like, oh my god, I like how Ali was being all like, he was being all political. He's like, oh, Tom. He didn't print Tom Hannafin for spreading misinformation about him, and stuff like that. He says he actually respects Mike Santana, but he says that Santana can't handle the pressure. And he calls him a liability, and even worse because Santana is an addict. And this was great, the interaction back and forth. And then at the end, with Santana attacked Ali after Ali mentioned that he was going to break his daughter's heart, and the Great Hands attacked Santana, and then Ali poured him a drink for when he wakes up. This was great. This was fucking great.
This is my early vote for 2025 Feud of the Year. I know it's early, but yeah, this is tremendous. All of this, again, it's a little for me, and obviously I would assume Santa approved it. It makes me not cringe, but they're kind of towing the line, like talking about Santana's obviously sobriety and dealing with alcohol. So again, that I'm like, okay, that's very real. You know what I mean? That's very real life. But the way they're doing this, and yeah, I think Ali's been better in this round. I think he's put this whole gimmick is much more complete now. And yeah, this was very good.
Oh, definitely it was. Joseph says, you're right, Bert. It is still too fresh that she was the final opponent for Jordan and Jordan lost. It was a great match at Hard to Kill, but fans hijacked it. Santana versus Ali is my sleeper pick for tomorrow. I agree. I think this is going to be a banger of a match.
I'm presuming we'll talk about it more. Yeah, we'll get into that because I have a few ways where I'm thinking they're going to go with that. But yeah, okay.
So after this, we get a Joe Hendry promo. And he's basically talking about he's going to find out who's he challenging tonight. Santino Marella comes out and says he's got an opponent just for Joe Hendry. And Ryan Nemeth interrupts and says that his big brother returns in one day at Sacrifice, and that his big brother hates Joe Henry as much as he hates him, and that his big brother granted him his contractual obligation rematch, and oh god, this was an enhancement match.
No, this was a squash match. The other one was a enhancement match, just because Deaner got a few things. This was a squash.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was. This is a squash match, but before we move on to the next thing that happens, Frankie Kazarian with commentary. Tom Hannigan tell him he has a match against Steve Maclin at Sacrifice. That shit was hilarious.
It was good.
It was. It was an embarrassment, and that was for the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Yeah, I have to agree with Joseph. I felt like
I don't think they counted that for the title. I think that was the whole thing because Hanavan was saying, "Is this legal?" That match didn't count.
Yeah, it didn't.
And that's just complaining to the gimmick from last week too, and this extra layer that Ryan's just like trying to get himself in next matches, and you know what I mean. So yeah, this didn't count.
Oh my god, I have to say, and I said it, and I said it last week. Ryan Nemeth is playing his role very well.
Yes.
Okay, so we find out at the end that Ryan is out of his mind, according to Santino, and that he wasn't the person that he had in mind. And he asked Joe Henry if he doesn't mind working another match, and the person ends up being none other than Hammerstone. But here's the thing. So 6 days ago on Twitter or X, Hammerstone tweeted, "I wrestled my last match for TNA at the February tapings. I'm no longer under contract with the company. Grateful for the opportunities that came my way and excited for what's next." So I have to say, like, I thought this was a good match. I think that he went toe to toe with Joe Henry and even matched Joe Henry on strength. That that AA to Hammerstone was awesome, and seeing Joe Henry do the standing ovation on someone like Hammerstone was incredible. The fact that Joe Henry won this, though, kind of tells me that they knew. You know, I haven't really heard anything if Hammerstone requested his release or TNA released him. But I have to say, like, whatever the case may be, that's probably why Joe Henry won here. And I have to say, it's such a shame because Hammerstone is an incredible talent. I thought he had so much potential coming in. I still think he should have won his feud with Josh Alexander. And it's really such a shame that he really didn't get to do much. I know he was injured for most of the time, but still.
Like, was this match originally scheduled to be a title match tonight?
Joe Henry said that he was going to be defending his title every week.
That's what he's okay. In terms of Hammerstone, real quick, I think this could be a blessing just because I think in today's wrestling, I think there's only especially if you're TNA, I think there's only a few wrestlers in really any company that you should go overpay for unless you can just blow money. And I think Hammerstone, I think maybe TNA, maybe I don't know what the deal was, but he's not someone at this stage I would have, you know, I think they probably might have overpaid for him. So him leaving now, I don't think that's a bad thing. Just because there's a lot of the people on the roster they should focus on. And then going back to this match, the only thing, my favorite part of this match, and I hope it doesn't hurt you because you know I like when they're able to go behind the scenes, but did it hurt you to find out that Frankie Kazarian wrote a bulk of Joe Henry's songs? Did you hear that? Even though Hannafan called him a liar, which we know that's just outrageous. We know Hannafan's just blatant accusation, like always. But I couldn't believe it. I know, and to find out that Kazarian's not getting royalties for some of those hit songs, it's pretty sad. He must have not had Joseph Park as his lawyer, because if he did, that would have been an open and shut case. But I did not know he wrote most of Joe Henry's songs. So 2 questions to you. 1, how do you feel? And 2, does that change your opinion on Joe Henry, his musical talent? Is he a fraud?
I did not know Frankie Kazarian wrote most of Joe Henry's material. I don't know if I believe Frankie Kazarian. I know he's a true king of TNA, but it doesn't change my opinion on Joe Henry.
Okay. And you're right. This was a very good match. I thought that they gave Hammerstone a lot, and I don't know if this when he very late. That's kind of. I'm assuming they taped. I don't know if he only wrestled 1 match in the tapings. If this was his last match, you know what I mean. Maybe I don't know if next week's show, it will be a fresh show taping. So if it is, obviously this was his last match. So now I'm assuming it's either going to come down to either AEW or NXT or WWE. So it's not like the fans of wrestling teenager, they'll see him somewhere. But you know what I mean. He didn't really do much in TNA, but that was a combination of injuries. And then again, I think TNA bringing him in, I don't think they really needed him when they brought him in.
He's an incredible talent, and he won't have any trouble finding work elsewhere.
No.
All right. Joseph says, I thought Frankie would have cashed in today. I didn't know Frankie wrote Joe's songs, but I don't buy it. Okay. So at the end of this match, the System and the Colognes attack Joe Henry. The Hardys, Leon Slater, and Elijah all come to Henry's defense. A brawl breaks out, and there's just chaos and madness. A really funny part at the end, Moose sends Jeff Hardy into Frankie Kazarian, and then Jeff Hardy sends Moose into Frankie Kazarian, and Frankie Kazarian is just going off on commentary about this.
He has a right to be pissed.
Yeah, definitely, because he wasn't doing anything. It was just on commentary.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but overall, I thought this was a fantastic go-home show. This is how you do a go-home show.
Very good.
Yeah, for sure. Are you got anything else you want to say or add before we get into predictions?
No. I agree with you. It was a very good show.
Definitely. All right, let's pull up predictions and give me a couple seconds while I go close my door.
I will say that I'm very. Yes, I agree with you on this. That it was a great go home show. I'm very intrigued. I'm looking forward to seeing if it is true their lockdown match. I'm looking forward to seeing how they book it. I'm trying to remember the last great TNA lockdown match. They're not always great, but yeah.
All right. So you ready? You got the matches pulled up?
I thought you were pulling them up.
Okay, I have them. Yeah, I
Okay.
have them. So in no particular order, this is just how it is on Wikipedia. So let's just go down the card. So it seems like we have one match on the pre-show. And Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr. versus First Class. I know I talked about earlier how I wanted Laredo Kid to get more of an opportunity. Unfortunately, here I don't think that's going to happen. I think First Class takes this.
Well, yes, they're money. So they're gonna win this.
I agree.
But I do think, of course, we'll see Octagon and Laredo Kid get a lot of offense. It'll mostly be on Casey Navarro because that's his role in First Class, to be cocky and get beat up. So yes, this will be a good match.
Hold the phone. We got an Octagon Jr.
Yes.
We have an Octagon Jr. and a Pentagon Jr. What's next? We're going to have Hexagon Jr.?
That would be pretty cool.
Oh. Any more wrestlers named after sheep?
I don't know.
Are y'all going to be live tomorrow after Sacrifice? Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we get us a 6-man tag match. It's the Rascals and Ace Austin versus Wes Lee, Tyson DuPont, and Tyreek Igwe. So this is interesting. I have to.
I think the Rascals and Ace Austin have to win just because they've been losing most of the singles matches in this feud. So this is where they get their wins back.
Yeah, okay, I can see that, especially if this is the end of this feud. I agree. I think the Rascals and Ace Austin have to come out on top.
Yeah.
Masha Slamovich versus Cora Jade for the Knockout Sword title. I gotta go with Masha retaining.
Yeah. Masha's retaining.
Yeah, the Rascals and Ace need to win, but not sure how much longer the feud can go with these teams after the tomorrow. Yeah, definitely not sure. Moose versus Jeff Hardy in the ladder match for the TNA X Division title. Well, this is a tough one because Jeff Hardy is the master of the ladder, and he would be a double champion. I don't know. This is a tough one. You know what? I'm gonna pick Moose to retain.
You know, I thought there was more of a chance of Jeff winning if they drop the tag titles. I think Jeff's winning.
But they're still the tag titles.
I know, but I still think Jeff's winning still.
Okay, Jeff gets the job done tomorrow. Masha versus Cora. What happened? Because I think Cora might be medically DQ'd. We'll see about that. About the concussion. All right, next you get Joe Henry, Matt Hardy, Elijah, Leon Slater, and Nick Nemeth versus the System and the Colognes in a steel cage 10-man tag match. I think the System. I think the System picks up the win here. I think, as I've been saying since January, Nick Nemeth is finally going to turn heel, and he's going to cost his team the victory here.
Yeah, Ryan will play a part in it. Yeah, maybe JBL, but yeah, the System wins. Nick Nemeth turns heel.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Matt Warner versus Sami Callihan in the street fight. I got to give this to Matt Warner.
Yeah.
I definitely do think that this feud isn't over, though. And I think you're right. It's going to lead with the digital media title somehow, some way.
Yeah. I would like if that somehow after the match, maybe SDL says something how she's putting the title on out real quick, then you know what I mean. She gets pinned. You know what I mean, or however. But yeah, I think the digital media title will be involved somehow.
The System have advantage thanks to Eddie winning. I think they will set up Joe's defense probably for Rebellion. Not sure if he defends at Unbreakable.
Okay.
The thing is, I definitely see. I think that no matter what happens, Frankie Kazarian is either walking into Rebellion as TNA champion or he's walking out of Rebellion as TNA champion. So I don't know. You know.
I think either Joe faces somebody from TNA at Unbreakable, most likely someone from NXT, and then I think he's losing the title at Rebellion. So
yeah. I will. It depends. I think that I could see him retaining that Rebellion only for him to lose like a couple minutes later to Frankie.
Oh yeah. That's true as well. I just mean he's dropping the title at Rebellion.
Yeah. Mance wins tomorrow. I think just Steph helps Mance wins, and Santino demands Sam versus Steph at one point. Ooh, that'd be interesting. The System have the advantage thanks to Eddie winning. I think they win to set up Joe's defense probably. Oh yeah, I just said that. All right, next we have Tessa Blanchard versus Ying Lee in a singles match.
I'm assuming Tessa's going to win. I just hope that they give Ying something just because she is a newer signing and they need to do something with her. I think really she's only had a handful of matches. So if they're going to give her first loss so soon, they need to make her look good.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next we get Mustafa Ali versus Mike Santana. I have to say, I'm kind of torn on this one, but I'm just going to go with Mustafa Ali just because I feel like if Mike Santana is going to be world champion, which I think will happen at a Slammiversary, he's okay to lose right now because I feel like Ali will be challenging for that title before Mike Santana and lose. I don't know. I don't know. This is a hard one. But I'm just going to stick with my gut and say Mustafa Ali.
I could see Mike Santana winning just because he's going to win the title this year. Sets up Ali winning, maybe beating him for the title later down the line just to pick this feud back up. But yeah, I think Santana's winning. Because I think they're going to move away from it after this temporarily. And then, they can always come back to it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no. You're right. All right. So next we get Spitfire versus Ash versus the Elegance brand and the Personal Concierge. This is a 2-on-3 handicap match for the Knockouts titles. I honestly, at this point, I hope Spitfire retains and someone from NXT comes out.
Yeah. I think Elegance Squared is winning. And then, we move on from this after the rematch, hopefully on TV. Maybe then we get, hopefully, Elegance Brand versus someone from NXT on Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm. Frankie Kazarian versus Steve Maclin singles match. Using your reasoning for Santana winning, I like Steve Maclin, but I could see Frankie Kazarian picking this win up, especially with Rebellion right around the corner.
Kazarian wins. The Northern Armory is a distraction by trying to help him win, but then it really costs him the match because he's too focused on it.
Exactly. Joseph says Spitfire needs to retain. This match sucks. I can't believe it's 3-on-2 intergender. Never thought I would see a TNA tag team championship match defended in an intergender match. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there an intergender? Eric Young and ODB?
Yeah, ODB and Eric Young were champions. So, and really, I don't think that the concierge is going to be a big factor. I suspect he gets taken out early in the match. He's not in play most of the match, and then he helps them win. It's not like he's going to be in there for spots.
This hasn't happened since the days of Eric Young and ODB. Okay. Alrighty, Bert. Anything else you want to say? That's it for predictions.
Yeah, just again, basically we've had 3 nights of TNA this week, so we can finish tomorrow with Sacrifice.
Oh yeah. All right, Bert. Where can people find you on
just on Twitter? Media? Just on Twitter at BertMaclin11.
And you can follow me on Twitter at @TheTilt_. I talk Raw, SmackDown, occasionally AEW Dynamite, and of course TNA Impact. I go live every Monday, occasionally Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, occasional Saturdays and Sundays. And of course, for all things TNA, you can catch me here every Thursday on Body Slam. And we'll thank you guys all so much for watching and for the continued support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you can notify whenever we go live and whenever Body Slam goes live. And we shall see you guys tomorrow after Sacrifice. Bye.